Disclaimer: the opinions you're about to hear in this podcast are simply our opinions alone. They do not reflect the position of the entire Gen Control Z team, let alone all Asians. Our individual opinions are a product of many things: education, upbringing, experience, personal interests. It is a reflection of these factors and so much more, so we encourage you not to take it as representative of all of our people. Content warning: there will be mentions of abuse in this episode. Now that that's out of the way, let's start, shall we?
Welcome to GCZ first podcast. I still have the morning brain fog, so I'm not really thinking very fast. Anyway, co-founder, would you like to start off with the introduction?
Well, hello everybody. This is sort of my first time doing a podcast, so I apologize if I will be unintelligible or rambling at a lot of parts, but I guess that's an introduction in itself. I'm Anne. I'm the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Gen Control Z, and I don't know what to say next. So
Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Michelle. This is also my first time doing a podcast or any kind of thing like this. I am team coordinator, social media person, and web designer. I do a lot of weird things for GCZ. I think we should probably also say where we're all from because we're a bit all over the place. So I'm from Indonesia.
Well, I'm the other Anne, but I go by Phương Anh in this group. I'm from Vietnam, and this is not my first time doing a podcast. I've done this a few times. And then I'm the head editor at Gen Control Z, and I sometimes translate things into French, but it depends. This is our first podcast. We're testing it out and see how it goes. Most of us, I think, are still, I feel like, at least for me, I woke up quite late today. I was nearly late to this online induction for my university. And so my brain process is quite slow, so bear with me. But we'll go back to Anne since she forgot to tell us where she's from.
Yeah. Well, it's totally understandable for your brain fart in the morning. I haven't spoken to anyone like physically except for my mom for like 3 months. So we're all in this together. I'm also from Vietnam, but I'm currently residing in the UK. Anyways, I just came to our university.
Yeah. And Faye, how's your brain working now?
Okay, I'm slowly recovering from the heat stroke. Okay, so I'm Faye. I'm co-founder and co-editor-in-chief of Gen Control Z. I am a student at University of Nottingham. I'm from Indonesia, by the way, from Jakarta. And I'm also assistant editor at other places like Asymptote Journal. And I work in Indonesia.
It's cool. Oh yeah, I guess we could go around and say what kind of course we're taking. So I'm doing language and culture at UCL, majoring in French and minoring in Japanese. Anne?
I'm not as cool as you, although I also wanted to do joint honors, but because I like to do a lot of things, but I am very indecisive, and I'm indecisive, and second, I'm very sorry, brain fart.
Right.
I'm very impulsive. So for now, I've chosen sociology, but I don't know. I wanted to do English literature as well, and I also wanted to do sociology with philosophy, but my maths grades did not match the requirements. So here I am.
Michelle, would you like to, lack of university course at the moment, but could you tell us what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm not homeless. I just I'm taking a gap year this year. I'm doing liberal arts in the UK as well next September. We all actually have been going to school in the UK. I think Anne and Faye and I are all from the same college, and Fungang also studied in the UK, so we all have that in common. And I think Faye is also doing the same course as I am.
Is it at the same place?
No.
No, it's at Nottingham.
We've survived the introductions. I guess now we'll sort of explain a bit why we're doing this in a way. Co-founders, would you like to start off the conversation?
Oh, why is it always us? We should have never co-founded this. Jokes aside, if my goldfish memory allows me, I think Fungang, you were the one who brought this up to us. I don't remember when, but or like there were some discussions like when we finished our first issue, or even before we finished our first issue, when we were thinking about projects we would do for Joint Control Z. We didn't just want to be a publication. We wanted to use as many media outlets we wanted. We wanted to sort of express our values and experiment. And podcasting was one of the podcasting. I don't know if you can say that, but it was one of the things that we were thinking about. And then after we published the issue, we were like, well, what do we do now? And so we just started sort of talking about it, and here we are now.
Cool. And sort of, are you guys sort of avid podcast listeners?
I guess you could say that. I really liked On Being. It was like, I think that was I don't know, a weird space, but it talks about like a lot of things like depression and then like psychological stuff. It invited Ocean Vuong, which is why I started listening to it at first, because an episode featured him as the interviewee, and he was talking about diaspora and living through your trauma or something like that, and that really like inspired me to talk about things. I guess it was really fascinating to me. Yeah. How about you, Anne?
Cool. Yeah, there's so many good there's so many podcasts out there. Like on my list of like subscribed podcasts, it's way too many, and the thing is, like, a lot of them I only listen to one or few episodes, but there is one show that I really like, is Lexicon Valley by John McWhorter. He's I think, linguistic professor at Columbia University. And he recently did one about like the languages spoken in Afghanistan, which I found quite interesting, because besides Arabic, which I feel like it's is it more like a religious sort of language, like they use it mainly for religious purpose and then they speak other things?
Not really. It's
or is it depends on the place?
Yeah, exactly. Some of the non-Muslim Arabs, they use the same phrases that you would find in the Quran, but like it's like a cultural thing, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, he does lots of cool topics, linguistic topics. I think another recent one was about how the pandemic has changed the language a bit, or changed the way we speak. Like, for instance, actually, he said that for people who use sign language, like you would think, because it's usually with your hands, that the mask won't affect much, but apparently it's actually is as bad as like spoken language, because a lot of people still rely a lot on like mouth reading and like facial expression. So it's pretty cool. It's a really good podcast. I'd recommend.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting.
Yeah. Do you guys have any other podcasts you'd like to
I don't listen to any podcast remotely as intellectual as any of those things you've mentioned. They're not about linguistics or artists on interviews. I listen to comedy podcasts. I'm a big fan of Conan O'Brien, so I just listen to Conan O'Brien's podcast, and that makes me laugh a lot. So it's not intellectually stimulating, but it's a very entertaining listen.
It reflects your sort of hobbies and interests, and I guess it's sort of like sort of something to put so you in the background so you don't feel like lonely in your room.
That just makes me sound like a spinster with like 2 cats. Nothing against spinsters, but that is true.
How about you, Anne?
I had a podcast phase. I don't listen to podcasts now anymore because I mainly gravitate towards like long YouTube videos, so like video
Right.
essays or podcast video forms on YouTube. I don't know why I don't use podcasts anymore, because what I used to, like 2 years ago, I had like sort of 3-4 gigabytes of podcasts like downloaded in on my phone. So like I used to learn Chinese back then, so I would listen to Chinese podcasts. I really like the Guardian's podcast. They have like a wide variety of sort of podcasts, sort of, especially like the literature ones and the culture ones are very nice. Oxford also had a series where they just posted their lectures, but in podcast form. And I used to listen to some of the philosophy ones. But I think it was very overwhelming because there were so many podcasts and so many like interests that I couldn't like keep up with everything. The only thing that I really kept up with was a podcast by like 4 study troopers. It was Jack Edwards, Roby Granger.
Oh yeah, that
Um,
the wooden spoon, I think.
the Wooden Spoon. Yeah. And I just loved the vibes. And there were a lot of really good tips. And I just really like listening to the 4 of them sort of interact. Especially when you walk home from school and you have nothing to do, you put them on and it's like they're following you in this journey and you're not that lonely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, listening to that was like that meme I posted. Like when you listen, it's like you're with your friends.
exactly. And then there's a podcast like K-pop fans and people that follow K-pop idols. They will be familiar with a thing called Dive Studios. It's sort of a podcast platform, and it's hosted by Eric Nam, I think, and all like English-speaking idols come there to talk about their problems and stuff. And I really like Jay from Day 6, and he at a time he did host that, and he just talks about so many interesting things, a lot about sort of mental health, and he's just a very comforting figure. So to listen to him for like an hour on a podcast is just, yes, godsend.
Yeah, I agree. That reminds me of his podcast that he hosts with Alexa, which is like How Did I Get Here? Okay, I also listen to that because it's a lot lighter than On Being content, you know. So when I'm not in the mood for like really heavy stuff, I listen to that and it's just really comforting. It's like listening to your friends talk to you, and you're imagining that you're having a conversation with them or something like that.
I guess sort of trying to tie it into like our podcast. That's basically what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's what we're going to aim for. Well, yeah, so I guess we could sort of, with this podcast, we're going to kind of have like different segments, sort of different show within the podcast. And I guess we'll sort of talk about it and tell you guys what we're sort of aiming for with them. So at the moment, we've got Breakfast with Anne and Michelle. It's not the official title yet, but could you tell us more about it?
I think you tell it better, Anne.
Michelle, I've spoken for so much. You haven't spoken. It's your turn.
Basically throughout the months January to June, me and Anne were not stuck. We kind of formed a little bubble in our college, and we would have breakfast at the cafeteria every day. And usually these breakfasts would go on for hours and we would just talk about anything and everything. And we kind of repeatedly made the joke that we've become those bros where we're like, oh my God, we should make a podcast about this. We're so interesting. But I think our intentions are pure and we just want to kind of share interesting discussions that we wish we could have heard, like Faye said earlier, like when we were younger or something we needed to know before we left for school or before we moved abroad. Just different things that probably we needed to hear as our younger selves. So that's the thing. I hope we're not becoming podcast bros after this.
Podcast dudettes.
And I guess could you sort of tell us one thing you wished you would they told you, I guess, before, I don't know, you moved to the UK or something. What was something that you wished you knew when you were younger?
That's a lot. There's a lot. You want to go first, Anne?
I don't know if I can answer that question in a satisfying manner, but while listening to Michelle, sort of, it did come back to me, sort of all of those discussions. And the main thing is it's just going to be Michelle and me sort of talking to each other, but about things that are important to our identities. So sort of as females, as Asians, for me as a queer individual, as sort of international students, as sort of feminists, as media consumers, all of those things. And when we were talking to each other, we did feel that a lot of what we were saying, we didn't really hear that from like a lot of media outlets. And it made like the fact that we could talk to each other and could understand and empathize, it really validated those identities and those doubts. So that's sort of what we'll try to reconstruct. That's something that we'll try to revisit in that segment.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think a lot about identity and our experience, not experience as international students, just the kind of dilemmas you have to go through. Even though we're from different countries, we're both from Southeast Asia, but I'm from Indonesia, Anne's from Vietnam, but we've had a lot of shared experiences, and I think it would hopefully be helpful to some people. It was helpful for me to have that discussion with Anne, so we're just looking to help.
That sounds very how do you put it? I'm trying to find a word for it, but the only thing I could think of is nice.
It's the word nice is very nice. You could say that.
But what about Faye, actually? Do you like to share with us something you wish you'd known a bit earlier on? It doesn't have to be anything too deep, to be honest, just something.
Does it have to be related to something about studying in the UK? Or
no, anything.
Well, I think I hope that I wish I'd known that I wasn't alone. I don't know. I just so I grew up homeschooled my entire life until I went to can we say the name? Bellevue's College. And it's not like a very lonely experience because I have my siblings and they kept me sane, but this is going to be very dark areas, so I want to make sure that you guys are in a good headspace to talk about this.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Yeah, it's just that because I was kind of like abused by my biological father, and I was quite isolated from the rest of my family, like the rest of my extended family who supported me and stuff like that. And I wasn't allowed to have friends easily, so it was basically very limited and very isolated. And so I felt like I'm probably the only one suffering, but I didn't let myself dwell on it too much until I went to college, and then I was surrounded by people who genuinely cared for me and who have been through the same or similar things as I was. And I just felt like I wish that people like me knew that they shouldn't be afraid to be alone or afraid to express themselves as I was before, and that they can have a community of genuine people who can support them sincerely.
That went very
Yeah.
deep indeed. But thank you
for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It was very well. It's also interesting for me because like I think you've sort of known each other much longer than I did. So it's I've learned new things about you guys. Cool. I guess for me, I'm trying to think. One thing I quite wished I could know a bit earlier, I guess, is I guess it's sort of the general sort of things will work out like in the end in some ways, because like I feel like I've always moved between groups a lot, at home and at school. Like I never had a fixed group in a way. Like I keep moving around a lot, and I always feel like I might lose ground, like I lose connections and all that. But I wish I'd known that things will sort of be all right at the end. Like I'll be able to reconnect with some people, etc., and that yeah. Oh, thank you, Faye. Yeah, I feel like that just take a very sort of deep turn.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely what's gonna happen in every single podcast.
Yeah. You put
But as
trigger
long
words
as,
like
but as long as we have each other, I think that's sort of.
And
we'll
I
be
guess
all right.
I guess that leads us to the next show we're planning on, which is the Mental Health Corner, which I think is going to be mainly hosted by Faye and Anne. So would you like to sort of talk about what you guys are planning with that?
I don't think we've actually planned that concretely, like what we are actually going to do. I think it's gonna be like mostly reflection and some advice, maybe things that we wish we'd known while we were going through some really tough mental times.
Sort of like Faye and I, we've sort of known each other for quite a while, and we've been confiding in each other for like because we share sort of similar struggles. So we've always fantasized about having a space where we could talk about those things freely, because we realized that one of the reasons why we were struggling so much was because we didn't feel like we could talk to anybody about what we were going through, and that it was very invalid, or that like we shouldn't be struggling like that. Like, so to sort of talk about it, and hopefully for people to, in similar situations, to hear about that. We hope that we can ease that pain, and we can ease those taboos. We can debunk all those myths about mental health, because as much as, for example, the UK is trying to tackle it, it's still not tackled enough. And even more so in countries like ours, mental health does not exist as a discussion. There's not enough language or spaces to discuss about these things. So we really hope that through this sort of show, we can give that sort of comfort space to people, and then show that it is okay.
That sounds. I'm looking forward to actually hearing the shows and what you guys are planning with it. Yeah, I mean, I think the question of mental health is definitely kind of new, sort of something new that people are getting more serious about, and definitely a space to be explored, because I think, I mean, sort of in conjunction with the development of like identity literature, like with the self being changing so much, how to keep a good mental health is also changing a lot. And then the final show will be hosted by me. And it's going to mainly be like a language/literature corner, which is something I've been sort of doing before on my own. I started during lockdown, like the first lockdown in the UK, because I got very bored in a way. Because I had friends, but none of them were very interested in literature as much as I did. I still do. And so I decided to create a podcast. I sort of use it mainly to dump my thoughts down. Like sometimes I can't be bothered writing everything, so I just sort of recorded and just hope that maybe somebody will listen to it and find it as entertaining as or insightful as I did.
We do. We love
We
it.
listen.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we love it. We listen.
But I'm still sort of new to the whole audio production thing, because I'm working on a budget. Like those professional microphones, they're freaking expensive. But I'm still experimenting around. But yeah, at the moment I'm actually quite interested in nature writing, like the British nature writing, which I find interesting in a sense. Like it's sort of been praised a lot in recent times, but the main kind of things depicted is like this that's why actually I asked you guys what do you guys think about when you hear nature writing. And I feel there's always that sense of observing the natural world. Like there's always a distance between the reader / the writer and the natural world.
Sorry, what exactly is nature
So
writing?
nature,
Because you did, yeah.
that's the thing. Like I'm trying to figure out what it. Well, at the moment, it's anything, as you sort of said, like observational kind of aesthetic response to the natural world. But what I'm thinking, especially in the current climate of like climate change and environmental thing, is how is that engagement effective, or should it change, etc. Because I'm also I'm reading this book about fungi, and it talks a lot about how actually the individual doesn't quite exist, and that we are just made up of other organisms inside of us that also exist outside of us, and that we're all sort of symbiotically kind of exist together.
That is cool.
Without like one, like there's no real distinction where one individual ends and the other one starts. And I feel maybe we could achieve that kind of relationship more with the natural world, which might be more helpful for us to tackle environmental problems than sort of looking at the natural world as this separate thing to the human world, if you know what I mean. But at the same time, it's kind of a paradoxical thing, because at the same time we will never really understand the natural world. Like we try to convey plants and trees through like anthropomorphic imageries, but at the same time doing so might be misleading, because we'll have sort of preconceived assumptions based on like humans, how human work. But the fact that natural world doesn't work that way can be quite misleading at times. So it's something I feel it's very interesting to look at, and it links for me to like speculative fiction. like for me, it's very similar in a sense that they both kind of explore alternative existence of the now, of the present. And yeah, so that's what I'm
I'm
been
actually
getting
looking
into.
forward. I'm looking forward to listening to that because when you were just talking now, I was thinking, I sort of realizing that, oh my God, we humans, we did come from nature, right? From the natural world, but now we sort of operate with a distinction that like that's nature,
Yeah.
that tree is nature, and I am a human. But like we humans are sort of in the same, in the same makeup as a tree in a way,
Yeah,
like,
and like
we all came from the same material, right? And when you're talking about nature writing, the first thing that came to my mind was the Romantics.
yeah, like the ones that are sort of mainstream, like they've got that sort of the lonely Byronic hero in the wild kind of vibe to them.
Wordsworth, Keats,
yeah. And I was like,
Keats,
I mean,
Wordsworth,
it's nice and it's cool, but I feel it's a bit outdated in a way. It's not up to date with the current the kind of engagement I'm looking for in like the 21st century. But in a way, it's like a first step because like before we don't even think about it that much. But yeah, it's also the question of like what can be considered the natural world. Like, are cities inherently unnatural, or because there's also lots of comparison of how the metropolitan landscape sort of develops quite similarly to like the mycelium of fungi, like in the natural world. So like our kind of habits are actually quite natural, quote unquote. So how is the space much different? Is it just because like what's artificial, what's natural? That whole debate kind of comes in as well. Yeah.
It's really interesting stuff.
Stay tuned for that discussion.
Yeah. So yeah, that's sort of a taste of what we're planning with our podcast. We hope that it's not been too much waffling. And yeah, that's kind of it. Any last words from our contributors?
I think it's worth mentioning that our whole Gen Controls motto is based on like, oh, we value the art and imperfection and all that. So please bear in mind we won't be a regular podcast. We're just students trying our best. So don't expect regular updates, but at the same time we'll try our best to kind of have these discussions and put out the work that we want out there.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
I think on a good time we'll probably aim to at least have one per month. Yeah. I think that's quite a realistic goal that we could achieve on a good time. But yeah. So thanks a lot again for listening to this chaotic conversations between students, and we hope to hear from you guys, what you guys think, etc. And yeah, check out our website. Lots of cool blog, lots of cool poetry. We also launched our YouTube with the interview with Daisy, a very cool Vietnamese artist. So check it out. And the video is also edited by a brilliant Michelle, who did it most herself, which applaud to her.
Thank you.
Can I add something? It is important to state that like this is sort of our pilot episode. We're testing the waters, but in our podcast journey, we'll start to concretize our format. So we'll be a bit more organized. We'll introduce more segments. We'll have recurrent themes. We'll have recurrent things within the podcast. So I hope you stay tuned, and we'd also love to hear sort of what you would want us to talk about. Because like although we're 4 university students, 3 university students and 1 to be university student. We love a challenge, and we always love to know more and discover more things. So we'd love to tackle any topics that you want us to talk about, like be it mental health, or be it something more academic, or be it even things like I don't know, political maybe. And then we may have even guests in the future, who knows. So the main thing is stay tuned.
Well, again, thank you, and we'll hopefully see you next time. Bye.
Bye.